Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Simone here. Today, as you can see, is another one of my bookshelf tour, and we are nearly at the end. After this one there's actually only going to be one more video. Today I'm doing the top shelf of my little bookshelf. So I have, as you might know, a big bookshelf, a small bookshelf and a little bookshelf, and I have so far gone through the big and the small. This obviously is now on to the little one. I will link down below the playlist of the complete overview and then all of the other videos that I've done. And yeah, let's get started. This one is probably not my least favourite bookshelf in terms of the actual shelves themselves, and I like the books on them, but the actual shelving is not my favourite. But this is kind of what I had left over. This is also kind of doubles as my bedside table. There's usually a load of rubbish on this shelf. I have emptied it of like trinkets, but it's still not my favourite in terms of the organisation either, just because it's not a very big shelf. Obviously it's the little one and there just isn't a lot of room for lots of books on it. But do you know what, I really don't mind. I obviously, when I moved from the flat, this was kind of it used to have DVDs on that were in my old flat, but I have moved it all around. So yeah, anyway, let's get started with the books that are on this shelf. We have Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. I have the adult copy of this one, as in the adult cover. I don't love the fact that it's different than all my other copies, but I mean, we do have a nicer set downstairs, but that is not mine. So I had this one because I just bought them all from the charity shop, essentially, when I moved into the flat in the first place. And obviously this one is the 5th book in the Harry Potter series. I enjoy this one quite a lot. Like I said, there is quite a big, chunky one, but yeah, I do like having this book. I don't particularly love the cover. I would like to get an actual you know, the original one again sometime soon. Next up we have The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This is a Collins Classics edition. I don't love this edition, if I'm honest, but this is a children's classic, if you don't know, obviously about a girl who goes to stay with her uncle in the wartime, and while she's there she discovers a secret garden. And I have seen the movie of this, and I don't think I've actually ever read this classic, basically, and I've heard really good things about it. Like I say, the movie was really good, so yeah, I wanted to read this book, so I bought it a little while ago now, and hopefully I'll get to it sometime soon. Next up I have Royal Road to Fotheringay by Jean Plaidy. This is actually not a book for me. This is a book that I had on my shelves, and I am giving it to Julie from The Hungry Bookworm. I'll link Julie's channel down below. You should all go and check her out because she's amazing. This, I believe, is like a historical fiction mixed with a bit of romance, and I think it's actually about the Mary Queen of Scots, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to send this to Julie. I will send it to you, Julie. I keep forgetting to do it, but I will definitely do that. Then we have The Green Mile by Stephen King. As you all know, I love Stephen King and I'm collecting his books. I've got quite a lot of them now. This one is one I've seen the movie for again. It had Tom Hanks in, who is like one of my favourite people of all time. This is a book that follows a man named John Coffey, who is sentenced to death for murdering and raping 2 little girls, and it's kind of about, is he evil, or is evil something that is bestowed upon people, I think. And I think there's a little bit of a paranormal element to it. I love Stephen King anyway, so I genuinely would read anything that he wrote. So yeah, looking forward to this one. I think I might be buddy reading this at some point, but I can't actually remember, so we'll see. Then we have It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini. I've heard a lot of people talking about this one. I know that Charlie really likes this, and I know that Nicole read this for the mental health-a-thon in May, was that? Yeah, I think so. This is a story based on a boy named Craig Gilner, who ends up in a psychiatric hospital after having suicidal thoughts. And it's about the people he meets there, I think, and that sort of thing. I know that unfortunately Ned Vizzini actually did kill himself, so this is going to be a really sad and difficult read, but I am looking forward to reading this because I've heard that it is amazing. Then we have The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner by Stephanie Meyer. This one is a novella. I think it's, do you read it before Eclipse or after Eclipse? I can't remember. As you may know, I recently said that I wasn't actually going to be reading Twilight again. I got rid of my copies, but I haven't ever read this one, and I thought actually I would probably read this one. I don't know too much. It's a really short book. Like I said, it is a novella, and I think it could be interesting. I think it follows the newborn army that come in Eclipse, and it follows obviously Bree Tanner, who is one of the characters that comes into play in Eclipse. So yeah, I am going to read this one. I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it, but I will obviously let you know once I've read it. Next up we have Eat Me, A Natural and Unnatural History of Cannibalism by Bill Schutt. This is a non-fiction book obviously about cannibalism, and it talks about the different tribes and the different people that have taken part in cannibalism, and at the end of the synopsis it says our intrepid author tries it for himself, so this could be interesting. You all know though I love non-fiction, so I'm very interested in the history of this one, and it sounds really good, so yeah, looking forward to reading this. I possibly will read this one in non-fiction November, or maybe I'll read it for Julie from the Hungry Bookworm, her non-fiction readathon, but actually that may have already happened by the time this video goes up, because honestly I can't remember when I'm posting it. Then we have The Stand by Stephen King, and as you can tell from the space behind it, this is a humongous book. This is 1,350 pages. It's Stephen King, so I'm sure I'm going to love it anyway. It is giant. It's an apocalyptic thriller as far as I know, but other than that I know nothing about it. I will read this at some point, but to be honest, it does terrify me because I feel like that's going to take me about a month to read. Next up we have Geek Love by Catherine Dunn. I personally really don't like this cover, but I bought this on Amazon and this is the cover that came, which I don't really mind too much because I don't even know if I'm going to really enjoy it. This is a circus book about a man and his wife who have a very kind of strange carnival act, and that is that I think the wife bites the heads off chickens. I don't entirely know. And then when she gets pregnant she decides to cash in on that, and she like takes pesticides and like lets herself get radioactive around her and things. I can't even remember all of the things, so then they end up having children that are deformed or have like gifted children or with powers and things, and yeah, I think it's meant to talk about like bizarre beauty and that kind of thing, and yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this one. Like I said, I don't love this cover, but I think it could be really interesting. Next up we have Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. This is the first B.A. Paris book I will have read. This I believe is a thriller that follows a husband and wife who seem like the perfect couple in real life, but there are some things that just don't add up, like the fact that Grace will never answer the phone and Jack is always with her and there are bars on the bedroom window, etc. So yeah, it could be really interesting. I think Nicole has read this one. I think she liked it. I can't remember. I know she's read B.A. Paris before and liked them, so hopefully this is one I enjoy. Next up we have The Bone Keeper by Luca Vest. This follows... As a young child, Louise Henderson has always been told to stay out of the woods because of the Bone Keeper, and then now she's a police officer, her job is to go into those woods because bodies are being found in the woodlands, and she's not got a choice now to go in there, and I think it's about that. Apparently this is a really scary book, and the subtitle for this one says, "Don't go down to the woods today." So it does sound a little bit terrifying. Next up we have Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I know this has now become a movie. I think it follows a family whose pet dies. I think it's a cat, and they take it to the pet cemetery and then perhaps it comes back to life. I'm not entirely sure. I might have made that up completely. I am really interested, like I said, in reading all of Stephen King's books, so this is definitely one I'm excited to get to, and once I've read it I'd love to read to watch the film as well. So yeah, I feel like this is quite hyped at the moment, so yeah, definitely one I'm going to read. I don't know how soon, but I definitely want to get to it. Next up we have Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Berendt. I definitely mentioned this in my non-fiction books I want to read video, which I will link down below. I don't honestly know anything else about this book apart from it's apparently a travel crime book, so I'm not sure what happens. I'm assuming there's murder in it. I think I read briefly in the synopsis there was some murder, but I don't know, it wasn't very specific. So yeah, I think I saw this on someone's channel and thought I wanted to pick it up and saw it in the charity shop, so yeah, definitely one I'm going to read. Again, maybe a contender for the non-fiction, either November or the readathon. Another non-fiction book I have is Stiff by Mary Roach, and this is The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers. So this talks about dead bodies, what happens to you after you die, if I think it talks about like body farms, it talks about autopsies, it talks about medical science, that kind of thing, and that all fascinates me. So this is a book I've had on my shelf for a while. It's not very big, so another contender there. Next up we have The Survivors Club by Lisa Gardner. At the time of filming this it is the end of July, but I'm pretty sure this isn't going up until possibly September time, so you may or may not have seen this already in my August TBR. This was one of the picks, potential picks for my August read, so possibly I've read this one now. Who knows? I'm not sure. Like I said, so this follows 3 women who were all victims of the College Hill rapist, and then at the time of his trial, just before his trial, he's murdered, and the 3 women are suspects. They think that one of them has hired someone to kill him, and so now they're having to try and deal with that. So yeah, really looking forward to this one. It's not a sort of really well-known one, according to myself anyway. I've not really heard anyone talking about it, but again, I may have read this already by the time this video goes up, but either way, it's on my shelf and I'm excited to read it at this point in time. Next up we have The Outcast by Sadie Jones. This is one I'm particularly excited about. So this follows 2 different timelines, I believe. It follows, the first timeline is the present, which is set in 1957, and it follows a 19-year-old boy named Lewis Aldridge, who is travelling back to meet his 15-year-old, I think, girlfriend, I'm assuming, who's named Kit Carmichael, and it also follows the same sort of situation, but 19 years previously, when his parents met after the Second World War. Again, this is historical fiction. It sounds really interesting, and it's not one I've heard loads about, but I am excited to get to this one, and yeah, I think it could be a good read. Next up we have The Night Stalker by Chris Carter. This is another kind of crime thriller book, and having looked at the back of it, I don't know if you can see here, this is Chris Carter, and I've just realised I watch a lot of those like on TV, you know, the ones where you watch like killers and stuff, and he's always one of the psychologists that talks on there, so I'm interested to read this book. I didn't realise it was by him actually until I've just seen the back of the book now. This, I believe, follows, they find a body of a woman and they don't know what happened to her, what killed her, other than that her lips have been sewn together, and then they have to then figure out who did it. I don't know anything else too much about it. I'm interested to read it, like I said, because as I said, Chris Carter is a really good psychologist that I've read and heard him talk a lot about different people, so yeah, excited to read his book. Next up we have Keeping the Dead by Tess Gerritsen. This is not a book that I know very much about because it's one of the Rosalian Isles series. I believe it follows them finding a body or a mummy, and so Maura Isles is a forensic pathologist, and she gets invited to go to the kind of autopsy, and when they do an autopsy they find a bullet, so then they think maybe it might be more recent, and then they keep finding bodies, I think. As if you don't know, Rosalian Isles is also a TV series that I really love. It follows Jane Rosoli, who is a detective, and Maura Isles, who's a forensic pathologist, and they work together to solve murders, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, definitely excited to keep reading the Tess Gerritsen books because I think they're fantastic. And then the final book on this shelf is The Body Farm by Patricia Cornwell. This is also one of the Kay Scarpetta series. As you'll have known if you've seen my other bookshelf tours, I have so many of these. I don't know which book this is in the series. I like to collect them and so I can read them as I get to them. This, I believe, follows the discovery of an 11-year-old girl's body, and it kind of goes from there. Again, I don't know anything else about it and I don't want to know anything else about it, but I'm excited that I have it for when I do want to read it. There you have it, guys. That is all the books on the first shelf of my little bookshelf. Now I want to do my video shout out. So today I would like to shout out Laura from the channel What Everyone Else Is Reading. Laura is a fantastic find for me. She's a wonderful person. She's so kind and friendly, and I love listening to her talk about books. I really feel like I've got to know her a little bit more recently, and I just think she's wonderful, and I could listen to her talk all day. So definitely go and subscribe to her channel if you haven't already, and send her some love because I think she's personally one of my favourites for sure. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one for another video. Bye guys!